to another episode of Mile to Palestine. We're trying something a wee bit different this week. Instead of like the usual interview format, it's sort of going to be a back and forth about general news around Palestine, around local activism, around the BDS movement and any recent wins it's had. So to do that, I brought on a good comrade of mine, Damien from BDS Belfast. So Damien, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, glad to be here.
You're pretty used to it by now. You've done one or two already.
One.
One,
So
yeah.
not too used. Yeah.
It went pretty well, so here's this kind of thing.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So what we do is just like start off and give like a bit of a rundown on what's happened in Palestine recently.
Mm-hmm.
Just the news from there, discuss that a bit. So like obviously the big news is the fact that there was supposedly a ceasefire, which means
So-called,
the Palestinians cease and Israelis fire.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. And they've just and obviously it's just been constant killing all the way through that. Maybe not like the same intensity, but just this insane ongoing brutality.
Yeah. Well, no surprises there with Israel. We've seen previous ceasefires. We've seen the ceasefire in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Even right up to the ceasefire, Israel were killing Palestinians. Yeah, just like you said, cease for the Palestinians, fire for the Israelis. And what kind of so-called ceasefire is an agreement where one of the parties isn't involved, the Palestinian people themselves. And what sort of ceasefire, what sort of agreement doesn't look at the root cause, the occupation, the oppression of Israel. That ceasefire had nothing about moving forward with that, how to get rid of that oppression. Just kind of seemed like to me, go back to the status quo in whatever way we can with, less Palestinians.
Aye. This kind of that plan which like Blair and Trump drew up. Basically, it was like them at the top and like the Palestinians essentially at the bottom of a hierarchy for like the way they organise it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like Blair and Trump and a few like Europeans were going to be the ones running Gaza afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, no word about ending the occupation.
That just shows
like
you how ridiculous the whole thing is. What is Tony Blair back into this? Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
The architect, of the Iraq War, being involved in that, the millions slaughtered in that, and here he is again.
Yeah. I think people here kind of lose sight of just like how hated Tony Blair is. I mean, he's pretty hated here by most people. But I think people realise like quite how hated he is in the Middle East for like killing or being involved in killing like close to 1 million people in Iraq.
100%.
And now he's fucking running that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's like the way it's worked. I think with a lot of the deaths is that Israel has set up like that invisible line. There's like that yellow line.
The yellow line, yeah.
Where they've withdrawn to. So they haven't even got out of Gaza. And then there's this invisible line, and I think they have like yellow bollards at some points of it.
Yep.
But they're like every 500 meters,
Mm-hmm.
so you wouldn't have a clue how you could like visualize a line.
Exactly. And remember, this line is still 58% of Gaza is still under Israeli control with this line.
Yeah.
And we've seen in the first couple of weeks of the ceasefire, a whole family of 11 members of a family.
Mm-hmm.
Israel says that they crossed that line. Going by that family, how would you know? How would you know where it is? Like you said, it's very hard to know exactly where that line is. What does Israel do? It kills the entire family. An airstrike on their car. Just to give the Palestinians that fear that, okay, here you're fine. Well, you're not fine. We'll still bomb you here, but if you cross this line, it's execution. You're not getting past that. We've seen that throughout the whole 2 years anyway. Do you know these areas that they say kill zones or no go areas, and just slaughtering any Palestinian that enters into it, woman, child, anybody, man.
Yeah, and that's people who don't even have access to telecoms, basically, because Israel's wrecked the entire telecommunications infrastructure.
Exactly.
So these are people who, like, we probably know better about where the borderline is than most people in Gaza do.
Of course, yeah.
Because they don't have access to the internet. Yeah. So I mean, that's not showing any signs of stopping.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think it's going to be like just an ongoing, slower genocide, basically.
Of course, yeah.
Because like the Western powers didn't stop them when they were at their worst. So like, what's to stop them as they're just like gradually doing this sort of trickle of killing indefinitely.
Exactly. 76 years of impunity, 2 years of absolute impunity of slaughtering Palestinians, and go back to slower killing, still genocide, no ceasefire, no, just a pause with still slaughtering happening, still massacres happening.
Yeah.
What I like, I don't know, you're probably going to be the same as me. What I found absolutely heartbreaking through this, the pressure on the Palestinians, the Red Cross, to find the Israeli bodies,
Yeah.
the Israeli hostage bodies. Do you know these Palestinian people have been living through absolute horror? They have family members under that rubble. That's where the focus for the Palestinian people wanted to be. But with this fear of, if you don't get these bodies in time, we're going to go back to full-blown genocide. Can you imagine the horror of that? Knowing that your family member's under rubble, you want to focus on getting that family member out, and you can't. All of the international focus is on getting the Israeli bodies out of the rubble. And again, remember,
Probably like all the digging equipment and all that kind of stuff being taken for that.
Exactly, and
Whatever there is. Like
still not allowing what's needed through heavy equipment and stuff to go through all of this rubble. But the horror of trapping that, to wrapping that round, we're going to focus on the bodies, but the bodies are on the rubble through the Zionist entities' bombardment of Gaza over 2 years. We knew that this was going to be near enough impossible task. The Americans knew it themselves. And you had people going, well, why did Hamas agree to it? Why did Hamas agree to it if they couldn't get the bodies? Surely people can see, to stop the mass slaughter of Palestinians, that's where the focus had to be. It had to stop the bombs dropping, but as we've seen, the bombs haven't stopped dropping even during that ceasefire.
Like you said, Israel probably killed. It was probably mostly them killing their own people. Like there were one or two Israeli hostages who came out in not great condition, but most of them look fine. Most of them look like they've been well taken care of.
Yeah, these are the hostages, the live hostages.
The live hostages, yeah.
Released, yeah.
So it wasn't like they were the mistreatment by a bombing and general mistreatment of prisoners has been on the Israeli side. We'll come on to that, but I kind of think of Zionism as like a giant, like this giant mission of basically sacrificing Jewish people, for a certain number of Jewish people, for a certain like elite in the Zionist state. So the people are just like through things like just bombing hostages or the Hannibal Doctrine, or just even IOF soldiers. You have this like expendable part of the Israeli population who are just tossed away for the sake of this ridiculous Zionist project. And then like the ones who were killed in the airstrikes are just like another example of that.
Just that years and years of dehumanization of the Palestinian people. That's...
Yeah, that, I mean, it's obviously worse for Palestinians. They get it even worse. But it's like, even if you're an Israeli citizen, you would have to think to yourself, why am I continuing with this ridiculous project, which is just going to sacrifice me?
But that's what I mean. All our focus is on how evil and how scurry the Palestinian people are through this years of indoctrination and dehumanization of the entire Palestinian people, our people as a whole in itself. We've seen what's happening in Libya and Syria. Israel bombs whatever it wants, Lebanon and Yemen, even Qatar, bombing Qatar, just that level of impunity. But just that level of impunity, who would think, okay, we'll bomb where the negotiations are going to be taken? Like, how many countries would think of that as being a sane thing to do?
Well, that could be like that's going to be the kind of thing that causes it to collapse in the end. If it's so ill-disciplined, that's like the far right in Israel, pushing it to just always be aggressive, always be militaristic. So it's going to make stupid mistakes like bombing Qatar, which hasn't paid off for it because that's turned Arab countries against it more than they otherwise would have been. Yeah.
Still no huge repercussions, though, no punishments yet that I've seen. If you've seen anything, but not from me, like.
Not really, no. Only to the extent that they were maybe like push things a wee bit more towards getting the ceasefire. Maybe like woke Trump up a wee bit and thought maybe we better put an end to this or let a pause to it at least. I don't know. The other thing I think we're going to talk about is like that, like horrifying case, the prison rape case, which is just one of many at Sudetenland prison, which is like one of the worst. And we saw like the flotilla. People who were in the flotilla got tortured when they were there, got beaten up.
Yeah.
But so you can imagine what the Palestinians get. And there was this case, this one who got raped with like, I don't know, we know various objects like an iron bar, a phone, apparently like a baton, and he had to have 20 surgeries. That's just like symptomatic of like how the Palestinians are treated in jails.
Yeah, unbelievable. The horror of that. This wasn't the one that was videoed.
It was the one that was videoed, yeah. And then there was
Yeah.
just one of the woman who, the Israeli solicitor, like the top military lawyer, who leaked it.
Who leaked it, yeah.
And they're focusing on her leaking it rather than this.
The horror of Palestinians being raped.
Yeah.
In prison, yeah.
Yeah.
But that just shows you the insanity, how demented and demonic that state is. We seen immediately after that video was released how many illegal Israeli settlers came to protest outside the prisons for them to be released.
Aye.
We had documented evidence of that Palestinian hostage, I would call it, being raped. What world are we living in where even just that event on its own is enough for worldwide condemnation and stuff? Condemnation in words, but not condemnation in action. I mean,
no actual punishment for it.
No.
It kind of amazes me, like, people still talk about Israel like it's a normal state. I like every day I see these like things on Instagram of like land auctions in the West Bank. I've like places in like the US and Canada where just by virtue of being Jewish, and often if you're a criminal, they particularly focus on people who are running away from something and have a desire to run away.
Yeah.
So they say, here, why don't you go move to the West Bank and you'll pay no tax.
Exactly.
And we'll subsidise your housing costs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And people treat that as like a normal country. People say that's a democracy when it's like openly advertising sale of.
And then you hear stories how people are then using that to avoid, any criminal, in their home country, say in America, if they've got done with rape or anything, then that's a way that they can then get out of that. Go to Israel, go to the so-called state of Israel to get a home that was owned by a Palestinian and getting free healthcare and all that, and the American people are paying for it. That's the crazy thing as well. Like, obviously here in Ireland, we've had a close connection with Palestine. We've seen their history. We can compare it to ours. That's why, as soon as October 7th happened, and as soon as we seen how Israel was reacting, we knew that this was going to be it. This was the event that they were going to go full-blown genocide, because we've seen the 76 years. We've read up in the history. Anyone can do that and see how demented this state is. It has always been. It's been built on oppression, occupation, apartheid, and now full-blown genocide. So how can anyone in their right mind look at that?
Be surprised.
And be surprised. And, they say, oh, it's a democratically elected government. That's the whole point in international law. That's how I see the whole point in international law. You can't have, 80% of people democratically elected this fascist regime that in their manifesto wants to slaughter all these people. You can't do that. That's what international law is for. And what we've witnessed over the last 2 years is just that international law, humanitarian law, being completely decimated. And that's what's really scary for every single human being on this planet.
100%. I don't think people realise that. Like, I can't remember if I've said this before in the podcast. I'm always saying to people, but like, I think there's too much. Like, our politicians are too detached from like World War II and like the foundations of international law. Like, that was when it was brought in, when the end of World War II, everyone, regardless of what their politics were, sat down and thought, oh, we can't keep going like this. It's going to end the world. So we have to have laws about how you use these. We've got these weapons which can basically destroy everything. So you need to have all these laws about what you can do with them. And I remember like Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek finance minister, he's like, of course, he's often has useful things to say. He said he wrote. I remember him saying like politicians then like had it in their bones, like the sense of what war means, like really destructive modern war means. But now those were people who'd like fought in World War I, fought in World War II. But now we're at a point where no one's had that experience. They're all really detached from that kind of really destructive war, and they've all completely forgotten like how important international law is.
It's that mentality and that phrase of make sure you learn history so you don't repeat it.
Exactly.
And we're witnessing a majority of our world that probably hasn't then looked at history, and we're going ahead and repeating it. Never again after World War, and here we are again. Three genocides, 4 genocides ongoing at the minute.
Yeah. I think we'll talk about Sudan in a bit, but there's just all kinds of stuff going on like that, because there's just this detachment from the past. And like you said, like because of that, because of that you're allowed to have this place where that kind of warfare can go on. There's stuff that's being used on Palestinians already bouncing back on us. So like there's these drones that are being used in New York
Yeah.
Like the police have these drones which like make 20,000 flights a year. I mean, you work in tech, and obviously that's been sent back and analysed by AI. I don't know. To me, like that's a big worry, like the extent to which surveillance
Well,
can.
that's where it was always going to go. Do you know
Mm.
the Israel, the non-state of Israel uses Palestinians as a testing ground.
Yeah.
You only test things that you then want to sell. Do you know? So these things, these horrendous, unexplained bombs, or the way they're using drones, the way they're using technology. Absolutely terrifying. And that story about drones, being used in New York,
Aye.
that came as absolutely no surprise to me. What I'm very, very scared of is we're in a situation now that we have AI. AI's there. Not true AI, like machine learning AI, but we have AI there, and there's no I can't see it anyway, but there's no real international focus on like let's control this, let's make sure there's rules and regulations. It seems like companies are being given that. You decide how you're going to put laws in place and stuff, and we've seen it already. We've seen how Israel, the non-state of Israel, was using AI in the Lavender system.
Aye.
Using companies like Microsoft to take in all this information, Palestinian phone calls, millions of Palestinian phone calls per day.
Some stored here in Ireland.
Yeah, stored here in Ireland. Another part why the Irish, Ireland is just as complicit. We may have people that are very supportive,
Aye.
but Ireland is complicit, hugely complicit. But all of that AI feed into this Lavender AI. Anyone, any of your viewers that don't know about the Lavender AI, go and research it. It is terrifying. It is so scary how they used AI for the mass slaughter of, I say hundreds of thousands of Palestinians.
Probably, yeah.
But especially in the first few weeks, where it was just mass slaughter. There was no real rules, regulations over that. It was picking targets. It was loosely picking targets. It was then generating targets to say it's more, beneficial, or it was programmed in whatever way to then target those targets when they're in their home with their families.
It's like the Where's Daddy program.
The Where's Daddy program, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they like sort of mention the family element of it in the name of the program tells you that they either are deliberately killing children or just don't care in the least.
Of course, it's deliberate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I mean, that's another thing that, like, if I was ever like quizzed by like some mainstream reporter or something, and they were trying to act like Israel was normal, I think one of the first things I would point out is like the number of times I've heard Israelis say you have to kill children, not just like you have to bomb, and unfortunately children will die as well. It's like, no, you specifically have to kill children because they'll become terrorists.
Yeah.
Scores of times probably I've seen that now.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah. And that's it. That's what the mainstream media as well, over the 2 years did not focus on. That really gives you context as what Israel is doing and wants to do.
Yeah.
Do these horrific statements coming out from officials, really influential people in the Knesset and stuff, with absolutely no sense of humanity whatsoever when it comes to viewing the Palestinian people or the Lebanese people, or whatever they decide their targets to be. It's just absolutely insane. It's crazy.
It's insane. Yeah, I was saying that MP, I can't remember her name, like a female MP who was outside Sudetenland prison, and she was just like, there was a big crowd cheering behind her, and they were all like cheering on these like rape suspects. And the ones in there, they're too scared to show their faces. They got balaclavas on.
Exactly, yeah.
So they all know what.
But imagine you were feeding this to the masses. Imagine you were saying the Israeli politicians have said that they're going to cut off food, aid and water to the entire Palestinian people, and then that happens. And then they say, children are terrorists, or they'll grow up to be terrorists, and then they're killing loads of children. And then they say things like, no one is innocent in Gaza, and all we see is indiscriminate bombing. All of these things feed in together, and the way the mainstream media has manufactured consent to ignore that part and not build up the context.
Well, they basically ignored it for the first 3 or 4 months.
Yeah,
They didn't mention any of those statements at all in the mainstream press.
No.
Let them just get away with it.
Yeah, that was, not even using the word Israel in the airstrike. Airstrikes kill, 10
Yeah.
Palestinian people or hundreds of Palestinian people. Who dropped the bombs? Where did this airstrike come from? They don't go
Yeah.
into that. They don't have that in headlines. They might, maybe like 10 paragraphs down, and we've seen ourselves, like, we focus on BBC as a target because of
Yeah.
that manufacturing of consent for genocide. And how I hold the mainstream media really responsible for that, as to why we don't have so many activists out in the streets. Why we don't have a situation maybe like Italy and Spain where hundreds of people or thousands of people are stopping their jobs and going out and standing with Palestine.
Like the general strikes in Spain.
General strikes and all that. Yeah, we can blame the unions, of course, on that, but you can also blame the mainstream media. Because they haven't educated their viewers, and that's essentially what we do. What we try to do in BDS Belfast, try and educate people as much as possible. Because once you give the facts, once you give the information, the answer's there. They're wanting to commit genocide. They're wanting Greater Israel. They want all of Gaza. The only times they've ever pushed back is when there's been huge international pressure. Not enough, but when there is that international pressure, you can see them pushing back. But if they were given free rein, you know exactly what they're wanting to do.
100%.
We all do. Yeah.
I think media's barely improved.
No,
in the recent so-called ceasefire, right after the main bombing, there were headlines saying fragile ceasefire at risk of being broken.
Yeah, what is that?
I can imagine if 100 Israelis were killed and they said, "Oh, maybe it'll be bad if that ceasefire gets broken."
Yeah.
It's just,
and then the whole story when that horrific day where you seen all them images of Sudan coming out, and then later that day you find out Israel is going to powerfully attack Gaza, and that resulted in over 100 people being slaughtered. How horrific just to make that decision. We're whatever excuse we have in our head, this is what we're going to do. And what does the mainstream media say? They put the focus on, and Israel has returned back to the ceasefire. How can you word it in that way? How is there a ceasefire when you can just use whatever excuse you want, go and slaughter 100 odd people, and then slowly back into some sort of ceasefire? We'll keep bombing you because we want you to constantly be terrified. We don't want you to be comfortable one bit. But they're just going to do that for the mainstream media, not to go nuts over that. During a ceasefire, you've seen how Trump pushed this so much, and how they had that disgusting summit where they all praised each other for this. All of the architects of this, not but architects and supporters and silent, all in one room, praising each other about this. And then 100 people, and a week even before that, there were 40 people slaughtered, in one round of attacks.
Yeah.
In any sane world, you would think that the media would go insane over this, but you look at our Western mainstream media, you wouldn't know how horrible it is by looking at the headlines,
Now you still get the Israeli line first as well.
Yeah.
It's like Israel says Hamas violated ceasefire.
Yeah.
And their verdict of nobody knows what happened. So that soldier who was supposedly shot, nobody actually knows the truth of that.
Yeah.
The media just print what Israel said.
Yeah, I read something I think the Hamas, it's... I don't know if it's the one you're referring to, but there was one where...
It's the one right before that large bombing.
The 104.
Yeah.
I seen reports that it was, they bulldozer drove over an Israeli bomb, and that's what blew it up. But it doesn't... Not that it doesn't matter, but it shouldn't then allow you to just decide, right, the result of that happening is to go and kill all of these innocent people, And that, we're not surprised here. We've seen it for 2 years, them doing it.
Aye.
My overall surprise is it's been 2 years of them doing it. Why has this not stopped?
Aye. It's just because they're so built into our system. Maybe just before we move on to the stuff about what's going on locally, just a bit on Mamdani, who won, which was that shows there potentially is some cost eventually to these fuckers doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just,
and that was actually a week after Catherine Connolly too, so that was two things. I wake up every day trying to look for hope, and even wee bits of hope, you grab onto it because the world is extremely scary, and it's really scary what's happening here. But to see Catherine Connolly, and then I was very worried about, I thought he was actually going to maybe lose it. I don't know. I've seen all the polls and all, but you look at this whole system. He's still part of that system. He's still in that system. So you just then go, oh, I don't know. This could collapse. It could be Como in some way. They'll get him the win, in any way that they put forward. But that's it. It's huge. It's a big win, but it's still part of the system. I'm excited for it to see where it goes, but it does. Hopefully, that's a huge sign that people have changed. You know, we can only really tell that maybe in elections. Would that be fair to say? Like, really, if something
big
massive,
shifting.
a big shift.
Yeah.
But that, you know, him winning that was a big shift, and that's what is in New York, the financial capital, the capitalist capital of the world.
Yeah.
And now, you know, an immigrant Muslim is now, you know, the mayor, or will be the mayor in January. So that's hopeful.
It's hopeful, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's such a good politician. Like he's really skilled.
Yeah. Anything I've seen of him, he's answering questions. You don't get that from
It's like
politicians.
that. Yeah. He's a bit like Zach Polanski.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like Zach. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you there.
Oh no, I was just it just popped into my head that, you know, when they were all that debate, was it? Where they're all there, and where's your first foreign country? You go to Israel, all first Israel, second visit to Israel. New York. I would be the mayor of New York, so I'll stay here and I'll focus on the people of New York, no matter what religion or race or whatever. And you know, instead of going, oh, that's a brilliant answer. It's why. Yeah. Why would you not go to Israel? Do you not think, you know, that is crazy? That's insane. There's people watching that and thinking, oh, this is a natural way for politicians and the media to act. Do you know?
That's what gets people. That's why people say, is Israel more in control of the US than the US is in control of itself?
Yeah, very good question.
It's like if you're
Zionism's in control of both.
Zionism, it has that much leverage that's what happens in a debate. You're expected to pledge allegiance to Israel before you pledge allegiance to the own city you're getting elected to.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some American politicians being referred to as Israel first politicians now.
Yeah, rather than America first.
Yeah,
Trump slogan. Yeah.
You even see those, you know, the MAGA supporters starting to look at this and going, a lot of taxes going in. What are we getting from it? You know.
Like Charlie Kirk, and there's this theories he was.
Yeah, not to give any positivity on, you know,
on
the MAGA group and Charlie Kirk and stuff, but, you know, when people from that side start to question, you're like, everyone on the other, you know, all of these people should already know and should be out protesting, should be out doing as much as they can. If the bloody far right and Charlie Kirk is questioning, do you know what's going on and what is being hidden from the public, do you know?
Often it's for the wrong reasons. Often it's like, oh, they're wasting too much money on Israel. Or, well, it's not the wrong reason, but it's not the main reason.
It's not like, oh, the mass slaughter of innocent people. Oh, we feel so bad for them. Yeah, exactly. It's about, why should we be funding Israel's wars? Do you know, this isn't a war. It's very obvious. But why should we be funding Israel? You know, what do we get from it and all that? You know,
it's that kind of thing. It's like nationalism. Like, why don't we have more control over what we do here? Yeah. I'll maybe talk a bit then about like what's going on locally. Just start with us, I suppose, since we get that privilege talking to ourselves on here, talk about how wonderful we are. So obviously, like what's been going on recently is just the usual shop campaign. Like for anyone who doesn't know, like we take Israeli probably everyone watching this does know by now that we take Israeli products off the shelves in local shops, but that's going pretty well. Like like the places we go.
Yeah,
like certainly in West Belfast, there's nothing in any of the main shops.
Yeah, sure. It's even the public. You know, something that my dad said at the very start. He was like, "Look, people don't know about this. You know, that's what you need to focus on." So, you know, going in the stores, educating people. You know, remember in the earlier days, it was every single time you're coming in these stores, and you would get some sort of bad reaction, you know, from the Zionist supporter or whatever. You know, you get it from both sides. I'm not paying, you know, you got the Republican side and loyalist side, and, you know, just anybody from the public, you would get.
That guy threatened to genocide us, remember?
Yeah. Those crazy events, remember? Oh, those crazy events.
I thought it looked like he was going to attack us and
stuff.
Yeah.
And all of this, you know, just throwing out all of this, and we knew like all this fake information that you need to get away from that. You need to educate. That's not true. You know, it's not true. That was an image from like 10 years ago in Iraq, for example, or something like that. But using this as their way of going, you know, is it to like justify why they shouldn't care enough for these people, for an entire population of people.
But I think I think over time we've got through those people, and probably a combination of like just 2 years of genocide and us just going in every single day to the shops has sort of shifted people a bit, 100%.
Yeah.
So it's not much. I mean, not much in those shops, and home bargains is the main focus Like Boucher Road, we would do regularly now. Obviously, we had that big win in the court case where Sainsbury's tried to take us to court for stickering a SodaStream box, and they claimed like £110 worth of damage for stickering this box.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there. I wasn't there because I was under the weather that day. But do you want to talk about what happened? It's pretty.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do
epic
it
day.
justice because like you're in that. It's a lot going on
It's
in
like
the
5
courtroom.
hours, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Where we're going in, then we're asked to leave, then we're going back in, then we're asked to leave, and then you're talking, and then you're just still on the phone looking at what's happening in Gaza and all that. So a lot going on that day. But yeah, it's an absolute farce. Like at the very start, just you don't have enough evidence for this, and then Sainsbury's going, right, give us 2 hours. We'll go and try and find some evidence.
It's been a year.
Yeah, well, does that work? Does that always happen? Here we are at the court case. You don't actually have enough evidence. We'll give you more time to go and find some. That was so.
Aye.
I've never been involved with courts, thankfully, and stuff like that. So it was the first time I've really been in a courtroom and seeing that unfold. But I just find that absolutely confusing, and this whole thing.
It's like a lawyer from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. he doesn't even know what he's doing half the time.
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of, and then in Simpsons, like he's kicked out of court.
Yeah.
Whereas here, they get 2 more hours.
Yeah. Remember, this is like the 11th time that
Yeah.
Marty said in the speech, 11th time going to that court, and immediately in the first sitting you're going, no evidence.
Yeah.
This has been over a year and a half.
Aye.
If you've no evidence, the crime didn't happen. I just the whole court case was just a bit mad. Like having the Sainsbury's worker behind a screen, which you would normally have as if
Like
you're,
Soldier F or something.
yeah, as if you're really fearful. No, but we go into those stores every single day. We look at whatever, nod to whatever staff that nod at us or smile at us.
Yeah.
We have comrades in those stores and stuff, so just that mentality of trying to make us look dangerous or anything it's just crazy. We're not at all.
Aye. And we bump into that manager all the time.
Exactly.
And he knows who we are, we know who he is, and there's
Exactly.
we understand like he's being put there by senior management,
Yeah.
as Marty said in his
Yeah,
speech.
and I reiterate
Yeah.
that. It was great to highlight that because our enemies aren't staff. It's the corporations. It's these corporations that are in cahoots with Israel, that are funding the genocide that's happening, that have agreements with Israel. We do want the staff to help,
Yeah.
but that's what we're there for. We want to be allies. We want to be comrades with staff members, with whoever managers that they want. And that's where I don't know much about the union space and stuff, but I just hope, and I just kind of pray. I'm not religious or anything, but just to kind of hope that more effort gets put into that.
I think there is, yeah.
Yeah.
And like with stuff like what happened to Unison, it's Unison who seem quite responsive now. Actually, Unison seem like they might be willing to help us a bit, and they are known to be one of the more pro-Palestinian unions, and they got kicked out of that conference.
Yeah.
Not too long.
Yeah,
Sort of
yeah,
got kicked out. They left after being told they couldn't put a Palestine graphic on the screen.
Yeah, I remember that. Fair play to them for coming out, standing strong.
And that was something ridiculous. It was like the screens that are between like the main stages, and they said, "Oh, that counts as our workplace." Those screens, but like if you've been in the ICC, International Convention Centre, like when a conference is on, everything becomes like the conference space. It's not like that's just a workspace for the staff and that's for the conference. The whole
it's
thing
the
is
whole
part of the
thing. It's
conference,
from the front door, everything else.
Yeah.
And just to say, well done in those in the conference infiltrations.
Aye.
Very good. What was the big data?
And
That was targeting Microsoft, and then the Invest in I.
Invest in I, yeah.
Yeah. So like there we're focusing on the shops, we're focusing on our kind of like our core, but since even BDS or since the BDS movement put out that call for peaceful disruptive actions,
That's it, yeah.
we've seen activists here listen to that. There was the roadblocks, the City Hall roadblock. Then there was the blocking the BBC staff from going into work, so more targeted at the complicity.
Yeah.
Those those
October the 7th.
the October the 7th, of course, City Hall, all that. And then the conference ones were really no business as usual. Microsoft was at that conference for the big data one. We know how complicit Microsoft is, and for them to stand on the stage and start talking as if they, as a normal forward-thinking company and stuff like that, when you know how involved they are and how useful they are to the Zionist genocide of the Palestinian people, that's something you just can't look past. You really, really need to get that complicity removed. I think recently I can't remember the actual term, but Microsoft took them off so they couldn't get access to their AI or something like that.
Unit 8200, was that?
Yeah, that there, yeah. Doing wee things like that, they're still fully complicit,
I have a bit about it here. Yeah, like read it down, like Microsoft has terminated Unit 8200, and they're like the elite, so-called intelligence unit of the Israeli military. Yeah, terminated Unit 8200's access to select cloud storage and AI services, making it the first giant tech company to do anything like this against Israel since the start of the genocide, which is pretty crazy. You think about it, took that long, but then they want to say that's one thing, but they're still massively complicit.
Still remain fully complicit. Like the Microsoft's had deep complicity, not just from 2 years, but for over 30 years in the Zionist state, or so-called state.
Yeah, I mean they contribute a lot processing power to their AI systems, like the ones you talked about, Lavender. They use their Azure cloud storage for storing loads of data that they just hoover up constantly. So even if they've dropped 8200, there's going to be loads of equivalent stuff anyway.
But that's what it takes. It takes people to go in and disrupt that. All of those people in that tech room might not have known about that Microsoft. Now they do. And Invest in I, they might not have known about how Invest in I is connected to all of this. Now they do. So it's that real emphasis on education and making sure that there is no business as usual for these complicit companies and institutions.
And they are one of the main targets. Like they got added recently, a focus on Xbox, right? And Game Pass.
Yeah. So with that one, because Microsoft obviously, the BDS movement have their priority boycott targets, then they have their pressure targets, and then the organic targets, and then they have their divestment targets, and then sanctions obviously from a state level. What did you mention there again? Sorry.
Just about like Xbox and Game Pass.
Obviously with the pressure, it's very hard to completely boycott all of Microsoft. You can do your bit, you can do as much as you can, changing email addresses, all of that, don't use OneNote, use a different note system and stuff. That kind of thing.
It's particularly like things like the subscription services. Like if you've got, like I have like an old copy of like Office from 10 years ago or something. I'm trying to move everything away from it, but I still use it occasionally for bits and pieces. There's one thing to do that. There's another if you're like on Office 365 or something, right? And you're just constantly giving them money on a subscription for that.
That's a lot of pressure on Microsoft. That's where you want them to drop their complicity because their whole systems and their whole infrastructure and all it people are using it. It's very hard to turn away from that. That's why the BDS movement then chose Xbox, looked at Xbox because Xbox being a Microsoft,
you've got an alternative.
That's the boycott then. That's what people can do. They can turn off their game plan. They can choose a different game console, stop paying Xbox Live and stuff. So that's real substance and what people can take action towards Microsoft. The stuff we just mentioned are like the emails and the one that you're really getting down to stripping Microsoft out completely from your day to day. And that's essentially what I've tried to do. I've been using like kind of Proton.
I knew that.
So like Proton email address, Proton password vault and all of that. Just to reduce that my own personal complicity, because we all have it. We all pay taxes, so we're complicit in that in itself. And that's where, the likes of Abu Baker, that phrase that he said, we don't do this as a favour to the Palestinians, we do this as a favour to ourselves. Because that complicity is running right through everything that we see in the stores that we go into, in the programmes that we use, in the football that we watch, or the cultural events that we attend. That complicity is everywhere, so that's really hard for people that know exactly what's going on like ourselves to just ignore, and that's why the direct action piece, protests are good, but it's direct action. It's no business as usual. It's going in and disrupting. It's going in and being a pain, not being a pain, but to educate and to
It's being a pain to the ones who are complicit,
yeah, the
like the
complicit
executives and stuff.
yeah, because they don't want people knowing how complicit they are. So yeah, it's a pain to them, but educational for everybody else, you know. And you know, seeing groups across the world doing that is so heartwarming, you know. As more and more that builds, as more and more people join the BDS movement, that's where the whole mass movement comes. If we take control, if we have enough people that are ready to boycott as soon as the target goes up, and that could really financially hit that target, we get control. We don't need to. Well, for me anyway, I see it. We don't need to wait on you know, that company to change themselves. If we have enough people following the BDS movement and policies, that's how we as people take control in, and that's how we hold companies accountable. In you know, this whole thing where they hold themselves accountable. You know, the very Zionist thing of holding themselves. Yeah, we've investigated, but yeah, we found nothing. We didn't slaughter. You know, all of those people. So that's kind of same mentality, you know.
Yeah. Well, they're not democratic. Corporations aren't democratic institutions, so it's very hard for their own employees to change them. They're not impossible if they've got a strong union. It's hard for governments to change them because they have so much leverage over governments because they're so massive. So yeah.
But the people who pay the money,
people who pay the money are the
speak
ones
their language, take the money away from them, then they'll listen.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. That's what we're always been told, and like in capitalism, that's how you express your opinion. Like, it's a pretty weak way of expressing your opinion, but it's one of the few ways we have right now is by just retracting your money from these companies.
It's powerful. It's a very powerful way.
Yeah. And I think you've talked like about how that could spread to other things. Like, you've got a T-shirt on there, like, we don't debate genocide.
Well, that's exactly it. So anyone that's following the BDS movement is Palestinian led, and you know, the whole story of boycott starting in Ireland, then we see it being used and being successful in South Africa.
Yeah.
And then what I see is the Palestinians kind of perfecting boycotting. You know, they have all this analysis, they have their subsections, what people can target, all of that sort of stuff. What have we seen appear in boycott? The BDS endorsed that over the last few days, a category for Sudan. So that's the UAE who are involved in those atrocities that are happening in Sudan through the RSF militia. So, you know, that has now popped up, and you can see which companies and what things you can target for that. Congo was on it, and then Palestine obviously as well.
Congo's still on it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Congo. So, you know,
Palestine and the US, if you want to boycott the US completely.
Yeah, and the US one as well. Like, things, I looked at the, you know, some of them, and like the likes of Uber and all that don't pop up in the Palestine one, but then pop up in the other. That's how we're going to get control. That's how we're going to stop companies from doing what they want, you know, because that's what we've seen ever since I've been born. You know, it's more wealth going to the 1%, to those companies, and less, you know, for everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, we're speaking money. We're doing BDS. We're boycotting. We're taking the money away from them. What pops up from them is ethical companies that then people can then support and follow, and then that that demanding of those companies that, you know, are really ingrained in our day-to-day lives to then stop being complicit, you know, and that's the pressure and stuff.
Yeah.
So I see it as a very, very, very powerful tool for all people. If everyone gets behind it, if we had enough people, if you had millions of people following, you know, you already do. You know, the BDS movement is growing exponentially all over the globe. But we need people to keep doing that. You know, once people start that boycott, and it's okay, the BDS movement, yes, there is the priority targets. For myself, I go full way, and that's what I use the boycott app for then. So that's like scanning everything. You know, it's the Coca-Cola products, it's the Sprite, it's anything, you know, Colgate or anything like that. I'm not touching it. You know, if it pops up on that boycott app, I know there's like no thanks, but boycott because endorsed by the Palestinian-led BDS movement itself.
Yeah, it's official, and it keeps the focus. Like, if reduces confusion. Like, if you're like, the whole BDS ethos, right, is to have a focus on very specific targets.
Yeah.
If people are using, like I say, it's not the worst thing to use no thanks, but it potentially spreads the focus then.
Yeah.
Rather than everyone being on the boycott app and keeping the focus razor or
Yeah.
laser focus on these
Yeah,
specific targets.
because with those priority ones, they obviously choose them in terms of like the level of complicity and then the level of success. So, you know, the Palestinian people are going through genocide. This is what they're telling us to do. That's what we have to do. And then it's down to everyone else to make sure that they're not spending money in anything that's complicit, in anything that's even the third connected companies, I would go as far down to at times. But
Yeah.
yes, not to confuse people, that's what the boycott app is for then. You know, it's very simple. Search whatever the product is and see if it is complicit. And that kind of, you know, removes a bit of noise in that sense.
Yeah.
But just, as you said, the priority targets, that's where the BDS movement want us to focus in terms of the campaigns and stuff. I'm just talking personally by focusing everything, you know,
Everything
the
you
boycott
can,
app
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And I would advise everyone to do it, but yeah.
For some people, it's a lot of work, but
Yeah,
as much as
of
you
course.
can.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
There are other actions coming up against these complicit targets,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, there's ones, funnily enough, on the same day, which is a bit
Mm-hmm.
bit strange, but we'll do something anyway. It's like Reebok and Chevron
Yeah.
on November the 22nd.
Yeah.
So do you want to say a bit about Reebok, about why they're complicit?
Yeah, again, there's so many complicit targets, you know, it's like, right, what's their level of complicity? Yeah, Reebok replacing Puma as FIFA, or as the football sponsor for the non-state official.
Yeah.
If you remember, the BDS movement, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, put out a post, got us all really excited that day that Reebok had actually, dropped their complicity. They told Israel to remove their logo from their jerseys.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the BDS movement puts up a post saying, no, Reebok's still complicit. They caved under Israeli pressure after asking that. Do you know?
I think they're still sponsored like the teams in the league, including ones that are like in the West Bank and occupied territory in the West Bank.
Yes, that included as well. Yeah, but I think because of the priority, because of the main national football team, that's how it's, and obviously with all that as well, that's why it's a focus for the BDS priority movements now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it like insane that Reebok would even take that on in the first place. It's hard to believe like whatever money they get from going to Israel like exceeds.
Yeah, but that's I've been following this stuff like over the last few weeks, and there was times when the BDS movement were putting out posts saying, you know, the Reebok logo was on the website one day, and then the next time they're not. So Reebok, no, they don't want it. It's I don't know. I haven't like listened to what Reebok are saying intensely about it, but you know, it's very obvious that they don't want to go down that route. Then we've seen these dropping off, then get the Reebok logo off the jerseys, and then all of a sudden, no, okay, we're sponsoring Israel.
Aye.
So that's the deterrent, that's the pressure that the BDS movement can do. Yes, Reebok has now went on the list, but I wouldn't give them long. I don't think they'll stay with that pressure for too long, you know?
Yeah. I just find it very strange. I don't know if they just thought they could get away with it, just like they could be covered up somehow or something.
I don't know if they're just putting all in the hope of people that just don't care. And
don't
there's
care, maybe.
still enough profit there, you know? That's why I'm like, get more and more people into the BDS so they can't do that, you know? There's blockages from all over. We're all going to boycott you if you take that contract, you know?
Yeah. And then the other day, one is like we said, was Chevron, which for us means Texaco.
Yeah,
petrol stations.
Yeah, the oil extraction from Palestinian waters, and millions or billions, I can't remember the number, but in revenues and for Israel and stuff, you know. Chevron, they're doing that in the same day as Reebok, but there is an All-Ireland campaign against Texaco, and that's going to happen on Monday the 17th of November. We're calling it Descend on Texaco. Really what I'd love to see that is just mass mobilisation across Ireland. We don't have the unions for an Italy type Spain. You know, we don't have that movement towards that huge day of you know, striking. But at Descend on Texaco, All Ireland, Texaco garages all over the place. Seeing people from all communities coming out, no matter where that Texaco garage is, you know, just go out, protest it, educate people on the complicity in Texaco. That's what people need to do, and I would love to see thousands of people come out on November 17th and really pressurise Texaco across the whole island of Ireland. And I would love to see this continue. So, you know, the Descend on Texaco kind of came off the descent on the media, if you remember, in May time.
Yeah.
Do you know? So there's targets all over Ireland. If we build a connection, and I see it, it's there. There's groups that are all connected through their communications and through their actions and through their campaigns and stuff. If we can get everybody out on that day to know that, you know, we can roll this into further all Ireland days of actions against complicity. That's where the pressure is really going to hurt. You know, it's great doing these, you know, educational and one-off actions and stuff like that. But if you can get into a situation where on all Ireland basis we are coming out united, you know, standing with the Palestinian people and against complicity, you know, that's where I would like to see it moving towards, you know, in an all-Ireland basis kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's what worked for Lidl. That's how you ratchet up the pressure. If it's just happening in a few places, it doesn't make much difference, but it's happening everywhere.
Exactly.
It can. Like Texaco have like 100+ stations or 200+ stations.
200+ stations across the island of Ireland, yeah.
So
and even just to
everyone.
touch on home bargains, you know, all of the pressure over in Britain now on the home bargain stores, and, you know, Scotland, England and Wales and the north as well. Do you know, it does take, it's one action, okay, that's great. 10 stores, okay, that's great. 100 odd stores, that's pressure. You know, that's real pressure. So that's where you know, I'm gonna keep an eye on that all Ireland and see, you know, what we can all do as a people on sharing one island. You know, whatever race or religion or section of the community you're in. You know, this is about humanity. This is nothing about anything else bar humanity. It's about people being killed and us standing together to try and stop it.
Yeah.
And what's the easiest way for people to have jobs and have livelihoods and all that to do is targeting the complicit companies. You know, that's what we can do.
There's no excuse for one like Texaco, which is probably open like outside work hours, so probably anybody can get to that one on 17th, is it?
Exactly. Yeah, the 17th of November. Yeah. Yeah, and we'll see. You know, because once we then see all of the groups going at one time, you kind of get a gist of, you know, we could really escalate this towards the other targets. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully.
Yeah, same. I think that should be a big success, and could potentially be the start of something big. So yeah, I think that covers all the recent stuff that's been going on here quite a lot. Yeah, let's hope that's a success. But cheers for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Talking
Thanks
about
very much.
Yeah.